Hey everybody, today we have a special guest, the amazing Patel, who is the CEO of Motivate Design and also have another company and other stuff that you're doing, books and courses, and we're going to talk about everything. And I think this is super interesting, as somebody who's in the design industry, leader, entrepreneur, business owner, and so there's so many things I want to cover. But can you share just a little bit for people who don't know you, just a little bit of context about the stuff that you're doing, Mara?
Absolutely. So my background is in human factors and ergonomics. That's what I studied in school. I've been doing user experience research and design for about 20 years. In 2009, I started Motivate Design, which essentially now is a parent company, and it will be by the end of this year, a parent company that has a bunch of line of businesses under it. There's an agency that does projects for clients. There's a staffing arm that helps find people so that if clients want to grow an internal team or if they want a temporary team, they do that. And then there's Insider Insight, which is a newer research offering that I'm sure we'll talk about. It's really exciting. And then two books, Reframe and a children's book that's coming out this week. So all that's under Motivate Design.
Amazing. So many things. And you're a mother.
And I'm a mommy to two kids. Yeah, Jaden and Liam. They're 8 and 5, two boys.
8 and 5. All right. And so I actually want to start off with that because I think this is something that, I'm also a father of two. And I enjoy being a parent. I'm also like struggling being kind of managing my own business while being a parent. And I feel like this is a topic that's not really well discussed. And you told me that you're now today working from home because one of your kids is sick. And so can you share your perspective a little bit about how it feels to be a business owner trying to balance family, kids, and being successful in business?
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to. And if people have questions, they can, we can figure out a way for them to ask me those questions. This is stuff that you're right. People don't talk enough about, and people aren't vulnerable enough about to tell you that it's not easy. It absolutely is not easy. I mean, a lot of things that are worth doing are not. But, so when I started Motivate in 2009, it wasn't a company yet. It was like me freelancing, and I was pregnant right after. So I started the company in May, and then I found out I was pregnant in August. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I think it was a blessing because I had to learn how to balance both. There's a baby growing inside of me. I couldn't go on trips. I couldn't work 12 hours. Like I was too tired, to actually do it. So very quickly, my body started to teach me that I need to figure out a way to have all of it in my life in dosage, in sprints, versus trying to do all of it too much. And I struggled with guilt. I struggled with not performing to a level that I knew I could, because I would need to go to sleep or I'd need to come home to nurse, especially after the kids were born. And I think the thing that was hardest for me is working through the guilt. No matter what I did, I felt bad.
Okay, yeah.
I felt bad about everything.
Let's talk about guilt. I struggle with that. Is that guilt that you're not doing too much at work or that you're not being good enough parent?
It was both and all of it all at once. So if I was working, I felt guilty about not being at home, and I would have someone would say something offhand that would really hurt my feelings, like who's taking care of your kids if you're working, and that would bother me for days. And I just have grown up a lot since then. I think guilt and stress are emotions that are helpful if you have control over them, but when they take over you, you're a pawn. You're not the queen, and so.
Okay, so that's super interesting for me. How do you deal with that? Like, what's your strategy for coping?
You just stop. Like you have to remember. No, seriously. It's every time it comes into your head. I mean, so I have a weirder strategy. We're all designers, so we'll do it this way. I've designed an avatar in the real world, in my mind of this bitch Mona, and like she's really mean to me, and I don't know why. She's not mean to anybody else. She's mean to me, and when she acts up, I have to remember that that's not me. That's just a version that's trying to be in control. And so it's a bit spiritual. It's a bit Eckhart Tolle-like. But, the concept is like, that's not me. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to listen to you trying to make me unhappy. I'm here at work. I find meaning in my work. So I'm going to go hard at work. And then when I'm done work, I'm done work. And I go home. I don't take out my phone. I don't check email. I just hang out with my kids. And
okay, so 2 questions around that. First of all, you do kind of set boundaries as to when you go home, right? So how do you decide when to set that boundary? Like, what dictates that decision?
When I'm like, for me, it's I schedule very deliberately. So time to think, time to eat, everything is in my calendar. So when my calendar's done, it's done. There's nothing else to do. So everything I do is a time block on my calendar. And if it's not time blocked, I'm not doing it that day.
Okay. So I'm trying to do that as well. You know, when I'm going home and put the kids in bath and I'm without my phone and I try to be there. But sometimes I would find myself like they would be playing and I would be next to them still thinking about a business problem. And then I would like feel guilt about, hey, why are you with them thinking about work, be where you are? But I can't, you know, I'm because I'm passionate about what I do. It's like I can't just stop because my calendar tells me I have to stop. Does that happen to you?
But why? Why not? Why not just so you can come up with a business? Because sometimes your brain works, you know, whenever it's not supposed to be working. You write it down really quickly. You go back to the kids. Like, no, seriously, why not? Right? It's
So you say don't stress about it. It's okay to think about work when you're with kids.
Put it on a sheet of paper, or like, you know, sometimes I'll tell Alexa to remind me to do something, and then that's it. You know, and then I just like don't think about it anymore. I think I find myself thinking about stuff when I can't get it out of my head. You know, so I immediately put it on as a to-do for the next day. So 30-minute block. Let's just say the business idea is like, oh, I want to target these 3 companies and send them a note about my great experience with them. I put it as a time block for 30 minutes tomorrow to do that.
Okay.
You know, and so like it gets done. It's just not getting done while I'm playing with the kids.
Okay. So how does your schedule like maybe for the morning looks like? Because you know I listen to all these entrepreneurs, you know, articles, podcasts, and they're like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I work out and meditate. And I'm like, you don't have kids. When you have kids, you don't control your morning. You don't do that.
So the kids wake me up. It's one of my favorite things. So the kids wake me up. We cuddle and hang for a little bit. I'm a slow riser. My brain works really fast, so I like to like give myself a little bit of time to like ease into it. I have a coffee. I hang out with the kids in the morning. Because we all come home at different times. We don't eat dinner together, but we do eat breakfast together. So I have my coffee. You know, they know not to really bother me until I have my coffee. And then we'll sit down. We'll have breakfast. So a new thing that I did that I'm very proud of doing, but it took me a long time, is now I start my mornings very late. For me, very late. I used to be at the office at 8. Now I'm at the office at 9:30. And so you know, I'm with the kids. I get them off to school. Then I work out. Then I take a very quick shower and I rush to work, and then I'm there by 9:30.
So you schedule from only after. Okay, so you have kids time, then workout, then work.
I have coffee, which is Mona time. Then seriously, like it's like otherwise I can't.
Okay, but how old are your kids?
5 and 8.
5 and 8. Okay, so you can have alone time. I'm like 1 and 4. You can't tell them wait until I drink coffee.
Yeah, right. No. Then it's like this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one is hard. One is that was the hardest time for me as well. Same age difference, 1 and 4, or you know, a couple months and 3. I was delirious. I was so tired. You know, it for me it got a lot better. You know, now they're little humans that can take showers by themselves and so on. So it's a lot easier now. But you know, I did have the company when the kids were that small, and I made a lot of mistakes. I was careless about things. I felt overwhelmed.
Can you give an example? Can you share a story?
I went to the wrong client once. I was like, what? They were like, hi, Mona. I'm like, hi, how are you? I'm ready. They're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm here for our meeting. They're like, we don't have a meeting today. And I was like, oh my God. So not only am I at the wrong client, I obviously was not at the right client. And I'd never made that kind of stuff, you know, but I'm not sleeping well. And I was nursing, and it was really hard. And then every time I make a mistake, I'm already really hard on myself. So it was a very rough time. And, you know, but I will say this, because I don't want to scare everybody away from having kids. We should populate the world. When I'm in a place of thinking about this clearly, I am so much better of an entrepreneur because I have kids. You know, I have to say no to certain meetings. I have to be really hyper precise with my words because I don't have 30 minutes to say things. You know, it's taught me a lot about time management, about patience for sure, about learning through failing, because you see them, you know, walk and fail, not even care. So it's made me a better entrepreneur to be a parent, but the logistics of how to organize it all is incredibly tough. Incredibly tough.
That's awesome. So I want to talk about your books. So you have two books. The first one, Reframe. How long ago it was published?
A couple years ago.
Couple years ago.
And again, because we're talking about time, and I'm sure the question is like, how did you find time to write a book?
This is the second question, but the first one is actually why did you write a book? Like, why would you sit down and write a book?
I was angry. So, anger can be a really powerful emotion. I worked on 3 design projects in a row where we delivered really great work, and I know it was great, and the clients were just too scared to do anything with it. They're like, that's really different. And I'm like, well, you hired us to give you a different design. So yeah, it's different. And they would get really safe and very fearful around moving forward. And so the reason the book is called Reframe is, although I love the design process and I think it does work, I think there's a mindset shift that needs to happen prior to embarking on a design initiative. And that mindset shift. So
the audience of your book is actually clients. You would love your clients to read your book, maybe before they even work with you.
Yeah, a lot of our clients have read the book. A lot of people, actually, I wrote it for people who can't afford Motivate Design as well. There's a lot of startups that have read the book. There's a lot of women that have read the book. It's in XXUX and places like that. There's a lot of students, which I'm actually probably the most proud of. So it's in design thinking curriculum to just always remember that your mindset will shift how many ideas you'll have and which idea you'll pick. And so that really it's design thinking. We all follow the same process. It's that one addition that the book has around fear and understanding that.
Right. And so was it like just a passion, anger thing, or there was some kind of a marketing strategy behind it? This will help, like thought leadership, whatever.
I wish. It has helped with thought leadership. My rate is a lot higher for speaking as a result of the book. So you do get business benefits from writing a book. I did not have a goal to write a book ever. In both cases, I just write as a cathartic exercise. And when I wrote, I was like, somebody needs to read this. Did
you have a blog before that? Like, did you have any writing experience before that? Because that's a pretty big undertaking. Like, I'm going to write a book.
Like, crazy. No, it wasn't. But it wasn't. That's the thing. It's like,
okay, so now answer the question. How did you find time to write a book?
I recorded myself speaking on the way from home to work every day for a month, and that was that's the bulk of the book. The design.
And then you had somebody rearrange that and edit that.
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot
that's
was me.
Smart.
I did
that's
a lot
smart.
of it. I had like 3-day sprints to organize my thoughts, and then I'm not a great writer. I don't think I am in terms of grammar and technical ability. I just was really passionate about sharing.
I actually heard that's how Gary Vaynerchuk, if you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, he like talks his book, and then somebody is like editing them into a book.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the patience to sit down and but actually writing a book in your car, that's genius.
Yeah, no, it's like I just talked and if you read the book and you hear this, then you'll hear me now, like you'll hear how I speak, because it's a very approachable book. It was my dream was for this to go to students. So that's why I'm so happy when students read it.
Okay.
Because I think before you start the design process, if you can have this mindset, it really takes you way further. And that's been my experience. I've done amazing things in my career, mainly because I'm willing to push beyond where people are like, I don't know if we should do this. I'm like, we should do it. Let's do it. I'm already done. So that's what's worked for me.
And can you share like a story about how this book helped you to maybe convince a client or change a client perspective around a project or taking risks?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's I'm thinking of there's a few examples in the actual book, but I'm thinking of even and this will lead into the second book. When I teach as a part of faculty for eSchool for Girls, it's a charity that helps low-income girls learn about entrepreneurship and learn the basics of how to build an idea and then launch it. And they read the book. I also talk to them about it, and I see the shift in that case every time, from a student who's like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of ideas, I don't know if this is a good idea, maybe other people have done this before, this would cost too much money, this would take too much time, to like, this is my purpose. I'm pretty sure I'm here on earth to do this. because I see this idea, I'm passionate about it, and I could push it forward. I could commit to pushing this forward. And you see a shift. So that's my favorite one. We see it with clients as well. We work with very large clients, and we do see a shift with Nike or with Facebook. Of course we have that as well. But the one that I am very proud of is that one, which is why I wrote the second book. The second book was actually.
So wait, just for the context, because I don't think that we've shared about this. So Reframe is kind of like the process around creativity and problem solving that you operate in Motivate Design, right?
Yes.
And then so what's the new book?
The new book is a children's book, which is misleading because it's not. It's for adults. But my kids asked me, what is Reframe about? And so I told them the story of an elephant who wanted to go to a playground. And she saw a swing. Of course, we all love swings. She sat on the swing. She broke the swing. And so she's hyper embarrassed at this point because all of her friends are around and she's broken the swing. But she decides, you know what? I'm going to design a better swing because this is not designed for me. Now, everyone else thinks it's fine. No one else has an issue with the swing, but I do because it's not designed for me. And so she comes up with all these ideas. And there's a skunk the entire time who says, we can't do that. Costs too much money. We can't do that. Takes too much time. Can't is a very important trigger word for me. It's all over my TEDx talk because of my upbringing as an Indian woman. Can't is a pretty it's a pretty powerful phrase for me to activate because I don't like when people tell me I can't do anything. And so the skunk is saying I can't, and then there's an orangutan who's not talking and just building things, and it gets to what success for me has been, which is when I get in my head too much, the guilt, the parenting, whatever it is, if I get into my head too much, I don't actually get things done. And so I often channel this orangutan, which is like, I just start building stupid things. And maybe it's over-designed and maybe it's not what everybody needs, but it's done. And then I can work from there. So the book is about design thinking, iteration, user research, can't, it has all of these messages in it.
So it's basically this different perspective on the same ideas for a different audience, maybe. It's and you're actually going to market it for kids, like for kids, the bookstores or whatever.
Yeah. It's out November 15th. It'll hopefully be in some independent bookstores because I'd like to support those. It's on Amazon already for pre-order. The publisher's Mascot Books, so I'll do a couple pretty cool and pretty exciting events that are going to be around that. But yeah, it's design thinking for kids, and so anybody who's a parent, I'm hoping that they start teaching their kids this. But what I have seen happen is that the kids are actually not skunks. The kids have ideas, but somewhere along the way, a parent, a teacher, a babysitter will tell them you can't do that. It's like, can I paint on the wall? No, you can't do that. And there's all these rules about why we say that, but how hard is it to let a kid paint on the wall and just paint it white again? Why would you prohibit that creativity? And so I think the lessons will actually be for the parents around the things that they tell their kids they can't do already at age 4, that maybe they should slow their roll on.
Amazing. And you forgot to mention that all the proceeds go to charity.
Go to eSchool for Girls. Yes, so all of this will be to create scholarships for the eSchool for Girls, that charity that I told you about that I'm on faculty for. And I think that it's a great one.
Amazing. That's super, super cool. All right, the last thing I want to talk about today, so that I don't take too much of your time, is the Insider Insight. So I want to talk about that because that's the really thing that blew my mind when I heard you on. Yeah, it totally blew my mind. I heard it. So I don't remember at this point if I said at the beginning, but the way that I got to know Mona was from AJ and Smart's podcast, the Product Breakfast podcast, which you should listen to. So Mona was on there and she was talking about the Insider Insight, which she invented, and she'll share about this in a second. When I heard this, I was like, man, this is so smart. I have to find a way to incorporate that somehow inside my process. So please share how this came, what it is, and how did you actually came up with this process?
Yes. Okay. So the good news is, by the way, we're working on a class so that this is going to be pretty easy. Research sprints and design sprints, in my mind, are tango partners. They go really nicely together. So I'm excited for people who are already into design sprints to get this, because this is, so a couple of things happen. If you rewind back 2 years ago, we started to see the trends that people don't want to wait 4 weeks, 6 weeks for research, right? They want it quickly because their sprints are going to go quickly. So I knew I had to come up with a way to get information about customer needs quickly. In my mind, 2 weeks was about right because design sprints were mapping to about 2 weeks, maybe even a week. In some cases, we can do it even faster. And so I knew I had a 2-week window, and we started to hack at the research process of what can we do to like increase the speed. We made a lot of wrong turns before we started realizing a powerful way to do this is just to have friends talk to friends. And there's some quality measures that we put into place, which is too detailed for this right now, but it'll all be in that course around how we make this happen. But what happened accidentally is that when friends talk to friends, the rapport is already built, and you get this deeper level of conversation, not interview, conversation that designers are really appreciative of. As a designer myself, I never really loved a direct question about like, would you use this? Or, which feature, rank order the feature. I didn't want them to do that. Like my job was to figure out what the feature was and present it in a way that persuaded them. To me, design is a proposal. And if you like it, you accept it. If you don't like it, well, then I know and I need to change my design. And I felt like research was getting so prescriptive and so controlling over the design process. So a conversation takes it to the whole, like pendulum to the other side.
Okay, so share the process, like briefly share the process.
Sure. So
how does that work?
We have a group of people that we've activated as insiders. The activation is very important. It's not, we do pay them, but they're not doing this to get paid. They're doing this because they've committed to a practice of creativity and learning and knowing more about the people around them. They have a conversation about a topic. So right now we're fielding one on affluence. What does it mean to be affluent? How do you know if you're affluent? What's affluent enough? What's beyond that? And what's that called? And then if you are affluent, what don't banks understand about you? Right? So that's a conversation that people are having, and you can imagine like just the power of this, right? Two affluent people having a conversation, they reveal a lot more to one another about their business class travel or their paintings or their, high-end shoes than they might to a researcher. And so these conversations are recorded. They're sent over to us. They're quality checked. And if they're a pass, then the people get paid. And then we use that. We turn them into transcripts. And we have a process to dissect these transcripts to find opportunity spaces that the designers can use for design sprints. And so that connection is it's pretty exciting because research to me is as sexy now as design. Where we've kind of watered it down in some cases to be too controlling. And this version, which is not for every project, not for everything by any means, but when it's something like, what would affluent people tell one another about what banks are missing? It's pretty exciting. Other ones that we've run are...
So I want to just make sure the people who don't have context understand like the product or the service that you're selling. So what do your clients get at the end of this research process?
So in the smallest package, 2-week sprint, clients get 10 transcripts and they get a top line report with what we found and where the opportunity space is. So we call this a gut check right now. The concept or a checkpoint. It's you kind of know what people are going to say, but you need more color, more clarity around a topic so that you can move your design sprint forward. And it's been really powerful. It's been everything from a product and all the issues that somebody has with a product. We've done that quite a bit, to competitive analysis, to even one on harassment and harassment that's not reported in an organization and why at that organization people don't feel comfortable reporting sexual harassment. And so there's quite a reach. It's very elastic, the process, in terms of its applicability, but it's really only good for when you are willing to hear something that you did not think of. So later on in the design process, it's not a great fit. Usability testing or something else is usually more comfortable. This is better earlier on.
Okay, so you mentioned that now you're doing training. So the training is to learn how to do Insider Insight?
Yeah, it's how to run and sell your own research sprint. So you can sell it internally, you can sell it yourself. Yeah, you can be a freelancer.
I need that. I definitely need that. When is it going to be available?
I believe I will be done in January, so I'm promising February. But we're going to have the page up to purchase it in December, and we'll have a lot of co-creation calls from December and January, so that if you have questions, you get access to the resources earlier. You'll get previews of the videos. So there's some stuff that...
What made you... It's kind of non-intuitive, I think, to create content that kind of reveals your process or something that's super unique about your agency. So kind of what motivated that decision?
I taught at Parsons for 7 years. I'm a teacher. It's definitely a part of my identity. So all I'm doing is teaching. I think it is so ridiculous for me to be a bottleneck for this method that I believe in. If I didn't believe in the method, or I felt like I owned it in some way, yeah, my ego would be the problem. But I want people using this method. And if that means I teach it so that you can do it, then I'm fulfilling my goal. If I hold it close to me and you only can work with Motivate Design to do this method, that just seems it's not the way I run business. It does not.
Amazing. I definitely want to experiment with that because it sounds so interesting, and also like a very like product that my clients can benefit from.
Ron, I have to tell you, like when you do research around like the 5th interview, you're like, I can pretty much predict what somebody's going to say about this, this topic. My mind has been blown with this stuff because we don't give them a script. It's a conversation, not an interview. And so where people take the conversation and the things that they reveal, I've cried after reading some of the transcripts and listening to them. I haven't been able to sleep sometimes. Like it is so powerful. This is what I mean. It's like, how can I own this and like you can only work with it? It doesn't make sense. I need people who work at NGOs. I need people who work at startups to be able to use this method. I talked to a startup who had done surveys and done focus groups for a really stupid idea. It was like, I don't want to reveal it because it would be mean in case he watches this, but it was a dumb idea and for an app. And he somehow had convinced himself that it was a good idea. And I told him, and we used a little bit of this method. So in our course, we're teaching you to just like use your friends in a certain way because I want it to be accessible. He did it, and he just sent me an email this morning, and he was like, "Oh my God, you know how much money?" He was going to leave his very well-paying job to do this stupid startup, and in 2 weeks, he has truth, which he was not able to access in survey about why this product is not going to work. Now he can pivot it and he can still do it, but at least he's not going to launch it the way he was going to launch it, which that makes me feel really good. Like that makes me feel like I'm fulfilling what I'm here to do, not run, motivate, design, and make it a 500-person agency, but do what I did for this gentleman. That's what I'm here to do.
Mona, you're honestly like super inspiring woman, entrepreneur, designer, like kudos to you and all the work that you do. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today when your son is sick. I'm totally in the guilt mode right now because I'm like 15 minutes late of running home to put the kids in bed. But I'll try to be where I am in the zone. No guilt. No guilt.
I mean, just think of it like this way. It's like stress. Like you can.
I'll tell my wife about this tonight and see how she feels about that.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Mona.